Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Jyotirmayananda Society, a journey to self-realization. Please subscribe for the mystical meanings of the scriptures and to enjoy daily satsang with us. We are currently studying the book Yoga of Perfection, summary of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, commentaries by Swami Jyotirmayananda ji, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. We are currently studying the characteristics of an enlightened sage. We are on chapter number 2, shloka number 59. या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी यस्यां जागर्ति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः. Meaning, that which is night to all beings, in that a man of controlled mind keeps awake, but that in which all beings of the world keep awake is night for the sage who sees the self. Explanation: overpowered by ignorance, all beings of the universe keep awake to the world of the senses and the mind. They have no awareness of the transcendental expansion of the self. A sage, however, is established in that transcendental vision. He is awake to that reality which is beyond the deep sleep, dream, and waking states of consciousness. So the world of waking and dream are projected again and again throughout the limited mind all the time. Each night we dream, we are awake, we sleep. In the deep sleep state, the world of waking and dream are transcended, but there is a veil of ignorance which is not destroyed. Therefore, although having transcended the time, the mind, and senses, a person wakes up to the same world of duality and multiplicity. In the case of a sage, his intuitive vision has torn the veil of ignorance. Therefore, though living in the world, he is constantly in the fourth state, the state of Turiya, which transcends the waking, dream, and deep sleep state. So, that state transcends the other three. He is able to be asleep to the world of egoism, desires, vasanas, subtle desires, and sense enjoyments. A sage rises above them as if he is seeing a dream. He is awake to the world of liberation, wherein the self alone is. So it becomes paradoxical. What is happening to the world, the opposite is happening to the realized sage. On the other hand, all other beings overpowered by ignorance continue to perceive the world of illusion as their waking reality. That transcendental vision of the self is like night to them. Moving on to shloka number 70. आपूर्यमाणमचलप्रतिष्ठं समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिं माप्नोति न कामकामी. Meaning, just as waters from different rivers enter into the ocean from all sides, and the ocean continues to be immutable, in the same way, he in whom all desires enter without agitating him, he alone attains peace and not the desirer of sense objects. So, very deep shloka. The fullness of self realization is poetically described in this verse. The rivers are known by different names, they exist having different identities, but when they enter into the ocean, they become one mass of water. The ocean, therefore, is not agitated because it receives the rivers not as objects different from the self, but It receives them with a vision of absolute oneness and identity. In the same way, a sage, having the intuitive vision of the self, sees that all objects of the senses are in reality expressions of the same self. There is no duality or multiplicity in this world. All is indeed the self. Therefore, his mind is not distracted by the objects of the world. He enjoys the bliss of the self. Even behind the enjoyments of the senses, he sees the bliss of the self as the only reality. Therefore, he cannot enter into the world of death and sorrow. Moving on to the next shloka, shloka number 71, chapter number 2. विहाय कामन्यः सर्वापुन्मांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिम् अधिगच्छति. Meaning, having abandoned all desires, he who moves without the feeling of mindness, without egoism, and without any craving, he attains supreme peace of self realization. So, explanation: how does a sage walk? This question is further answered by Lord Krishna in this verse. A sage experiences the state of prapti prapyam, meaning all that was to be attained has been attained, nothing more to accomplish. Krita kritya, all that was to be performed has been performed, nothing is left undone. And apta kama, meaning all that was to be fulfilled has been fulfilled. So that's how a sage feels. Having attained this experience of fullness, he moves among the objects of the world without the sense of possession, without an egoistic vision of life. Just as clouds cannot distract the profundity of the blue sky, in the same way, the changing conditions of the world cannot affect the transcendental peace experienced by the yogi. A sage is beyond body consciousness. He is not identified with the ego, intellect, mind, and senses. He is beyond the three states of consciousness: sleep, dream, and waking. He is beyond the three bodies: physical, astral, and causal. He transcends the five sheaths: physical, vital, mental, intellectual, and blissful. He's beyond all those. He transcends this mortal world, therefore, he attains supreme peace. So, moving on to the next shloka, shloka number 72, and that is the last shloka of chapter number 2, the characteristics of a enlightened sage. So shloka 72, chapter 2. एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थितत्वास्य मन्तकाले अपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति. Meaning, such is the state of self realization. O Arjuna, having attained this, a yogi is not deluded. Being established in this, even at the moment of death, he attains the absolute state of liberation or nirvana. Explanation: with the pretext of answering the simple questions of Arjuna, Lord Krishna has set forth before him the ideal of a Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta, a sage of self realization, alive and enlightened. This is the goal that must be kept before the view of every aspirant. This is the blessed consummation of human existence. This realization is unaffected by time, age, circumstances, death, and destruction, meaning this is an irreversible process. Once enlightened, no more coming back. You have attained mukti, liberation. Even if a person were to attain this realization at the last moment of his life, he will be equally established in this Brahmic bliss. That is the promise of Lord Krishna. Nirvana is cessation of desires, moksha, liberation, apavarga, blessedness, nishreyas, the highest good, param dham, the supreme abode, sakshatkar, self-realization, mukti, release of the kingdom of heaven. All these are synonymous terms, so don't be confused where someone says self-realization, another one says God realization. All the same, nirvana in the Buddhism, all the same. Idea is to connect with God, our jivahood, individual consciousness, to the supreme divine consciousness. So that is the journey. And in this state of liberation, the cycle of birth and death terminates. End of it. A sage of self realization never comes back to the world of birth and death. There is an absolute cessation of pain and the experience of infinite bliss. So I hope you enjoyed this chapter, the Sthit Pragya Lakshanas, and then we will continue this journey in tomorrow's satsang. Hari Om Tat Sat.